All right, so the first step I would do to get started investing in real estate is work on building credit. You may not be expected to start buying investment property for a couple years. Maybe you're just in the planning stages. You still want to save up some money and get a down payment. So even if you're a year, 2, 3 years out from actually getting started investing in real estate, it's important to at least start building credit today, because building credit takes time and your credit score is going to be used to impact the interest rate that you get offered from the bank. The better your credit score is, the lower the interest rate you can get on your mortgage from the bank. So it's important to start building credit so that by the time you are ready to apply for a loan, you have a good credit score that secures you a low interest rate, and this can save you thousands of dollars in less interest payments that you have to pay compared to someone who's got a lower credit score that has to pay a higher interest rate on their mortgage. So what's considered a good credit score? Well, a starting minimum level would be to try to get it to at least a 720. Now, as you start to get it to that 740 to 760 range, this is typically where banks are going to offer you the best interest rate. And anything above a 760 score is going to be secured to go ahead and get that lowest possible interest rate on the mortgage. All right, so I've already made another entire video on ways to boost your credit score, and we cover how a credit score is calculated, but I'll give you a quick rundown here. So two of the most important factors that impact your credit score: number one, making your payments on time. You want to make sure you score 100% in this category, meaning you never miss a payment. You also want to look at your utilization ratio. So this takes how much credit you're currently using versus how much credit you have access to, and it calculates how much you're using on a percentage basis. So for example, if you have a credit card with a limit of $10,000 and you currently use $3,000 of that limit a month, you're using 30% of your credit. So 3,000 divided by 10,000. So one way to drop your utilization rate is to pay down your balances more frequently so that you don't let your balance get very big. You can also go and increase your credit limit. So by opening multiple credit cards, you have multiple credit lines open, they give access, and all of this gets added together. So if I have 4 different credit cards that all have a $10,000 limit, that would give me a total credit limit of $40,000 when I combine all those together. So now when you take your utilization rate of just $3,000 or $4,000 a month divided by that 40,000, you're going to be less than 10% on the utilization ratio. So just focusing on these two areas can be a quick way to boost your score, making sure you have good payment history, making payments on time. This means making the minimum payment. You don't have to make the entire balance payment every month, but as long as you cover that minimum payment, which is usually $30 or $40 a month minimum that's owed, then you can still maintain a 100% on-time payment score. All right, step 2 after working on building your credit score is going to be saving the down payment. So to get started, you want to calculate roughly how much down payment you think you're going to need to save. So if you're targeting, let's say, a $200,000 house, for example, most loans these days, if you're living in the property as your personal residence, you can get as low as 3 to 3.5% down payment. So what that means is that on a $200,000 property, you would only have to put down 3%, for example. So 3% of $200,000 is $6,000. So $6,000 would be your 3% down payment you'd be required to make, and then the bank would loan you the other 97%, which would work out to a $194,000 loan. Now, this 3.5% is typical for FHA loans. 3% is typical for the insured conventional. So you need to look into 2 different options there if you're going conventional, if you're going FHA. There's also other loans like the USDA or the Veterans loan called the VA loan. These offer 0 down payment, so $0 down. They have special requirements to qualify, however, for those types of loans. Once you've calculated roughly what your down payment's going to be based on the price range of home you're targeting, then you can get to work saving that money each month so that you can come up with a plan to eventually get that much saved overall. So let's just say, for example, again, that you're maybe 1 year out from wanting to buy a home. So you want to start today, 12 months early, trying to save money for a down payment. So if you need $6,000 1 year from now, that's roughly $500 a month when we divide that up into 12 monthly payments. So start paying yourself $500 a month into a savings account. Treat it like it's an expense you have to pay today. Let it come out of your current income you're earning and pay that money into a savings account so that you're setting it aside so that you have that $6,000 saved over the next 12 months that you can use next year when you're ready to buy your house. Now, since this video is covering investing in real estate, estate, there is one key difference here. If you're strictly buying a rental property that you're not going to live in, so you're buying it as an investment property, then you're going to need an investment loan from the bank. These loans typically carry a minimum down payment of 15%. Some banks even require 20% and others 25%. So you want to check around with different lenders to make sure you're looking at the bank that's going to give you the best option in terms of down payment amount as well as interest rate. So saving 15% down can take a little bit longer. Again, you're going to need to do the math. So 15% on a $200,000 house, this would be a $30,000 down payment. So if $30,000 is something that's going to take considerable amount of time to save, then you need to plan this in that it's probably going to take you 2 to 3 years to save this much money. So what you're going to need to do is start looking at your budget. Where can I cut back some expenses? And then look at your income. How can I grow my current income to try to create enough spread that you can save away a good chunk of money quickly, and eventually it's going to add up and compound until you've got that $30,000 saved. So my recommendation, if you don't want to wait several years from now, if it's going to take you a while to save up that $30,000 for that $200,000 investment property, then consider doing the investment strategy known as living in a property and renting out extra units or extra bedrooms. So this is called house hacking. It's where you would move into the property as a personal residence so that you could take advantage of getting that 3% down payment loan that's only offered to homeowners. Now that you move into this property, using it as your personal residence, you can rent out extra rooms, or if it's a multi-unit property like a duplex or a triplex, you can rent out multiple extra units to tenants and start collecting rental income and using it as an investment property, but also as your personal residence that you live in. So now you can use these rental payments that you're collecting from your roommates or your tenants, and you can use this money to pay towards the mortgage, the property insurance, and this effectively makes your cost of living free since you're living in this property too, and you normally would have a mortgage and insurance if you lived by yourself, but now you're making those mortgage payments using the rental income from your tenants. All right, so step 1, build credit. Step 2, save a down payment. Step 3 is going to be getting pre-qualified with a bank. So for this step, you're going to want to go around again to multiple banks to get multiple quotes on loans. This allows you to compare different lenders to make sure you're taking the best loan option available to you. So things to consider when getting pre-qualified: how much is the bank willing to pre-qualify you for? Different banks might qualify you differently when they assess all your financial documents. And then also which bank is offering the best interest rate. So these factors will play into choosing the right loan that works for your investment property. Now, when you go to get pre-qualified, you're going to need to have some financial documents that are ready to go. This includes your tax returns. So banks like to see your previous 2 years tax returns. They also want to see recent proof of income, so pay stubs if you're working a typical day job under an employer. So if you're an employee and you're on W-2 income, you'll want to provide these bi-weekly paycheck stubs to your lender to show them proof of income, to show that you currently have a job and you have stable income coming in addition to showing them your tax returns so they can see how much money you've made and paid on taxes on in the last couple of years. And they're going to use this different documents to then determine how much loan you can qualify for. Now, if you're self-employed, a few things to note and how it affects you when you're getting financing. Number 1, if you're taking lots of tax write-offs or business deductions that you're legally allowed to take from the IRS to try to reduce your taxable income so that you pay less in taxes, this can be good for saving you on the tax side, but it's bad on the loan side. Because when a lender reviews your tax returns and they see that you're not making very much income because you're taking all of these write-offs, it's going to affect how much loan you can qualify for, and a bank's not going to loan you as much money as if you were showing more income and taking less tax write-offs. So keep that in mind when you're planning out how you're going to do your tax situation each year. Make sure you talk with your accountant and talk with a lender and have them review your potential tax return to make sure that it makes sense how much you're taking in write-offs so that you can still make sure you're showing enough income to qualify for a big enough loan if you're trying to purchase an investment property. All right, so step number 4, after gathering all these documents and going to the banks, getting pre-qualified, step 4 will be actually beginning your home search. So in this case, you want to write down your criteria. What are the different things you're looking for that are important to you in buying an investment property? You want to reach out to a real estate agent to try to help set up a home search for you and begin showing you houses. Now, one of the things to think about when you're looking at these different houses, you want to assess what areas, so different parts of town that may have the best chance of the property value going higher over the long term. If you're buying like a rental property, you also want to make sure that the quality of tenants that are going to be renting this property. So one of the ways you can filter out quality is by going into better areas, better parts of town that are going to attract higher quality tenants. So think about some of the headaches you can avoid, like getting into a bad property that's in a bad location or it's going to attract a bad quality of tenant. Once you know how much you can qualify for and what area you're targeting, then you can begin looking for these price ranges of homes. And then it's important to go see multiple homes so that you can compare apples to apples and see what stands out as a good deal versus bad deal. So that's going to be our next step here, step 5, making sure that you're analyzing every deal that you come across so that you can get experience and get history under your belt of what these deals look like. And you're not going to be able to recognize a good deal until you've taken this step and you've actually analyzed lots of different deals. So it's called getting experience, getting deal analysis under your belt. What this means simply is just going out there, looking at as many homes as possible. So if you can have your realtor show you 5 homes today, maybe tomorrow you guys come back and look at 5 more, and then next weekend you go look at 5, 10 more. And after 3-4 weeks of looking at just tons of properties, you'll begin to start gaining a sense of what a property looks like that's a good investment deal and what properties look like that are bad investment deals. So you're going to be able to go in, see the conditions of these homes. You're going to be able to do analysis on how much they cost, how much they're asking, how much the property taxes would be, the insurance would be, what rent you think you could get for it based on its condition, how much it's going to cost in expenses maybe to fix it up, to get it into a rent-ready condition. So you need to be thinking about not only expenses of fixing it up, but also ongoing expenses like your property taxes, your insurance, your utilities, that's going to affect your cash flow coming out of your rental income you're collecting each month. All right, so our next step when investing in real estate is going to be submitting an offer. So after you've gone with your real estate agent and you've looked at tons of houses, you've gained experience looking at all these different houses, comparing them apples to apples, running analyses, you're going to have a list probably of 3, 4, 5 homes that looked like the best options to target for submitting offers. So go ahead and make a list, rank them from 1 to 5, and start with your property number 1 that you're most interested in. This will be the first one you're going to submit an offer on. Now, if it doesn't work out, you're not going to sweat it because you've got then property number 2, 3, 4, 5 to go down your list offering on as well. So we don't want to get emotional in the offering stage. We want to make sure that we're buying this investment property at the best price possible, which means getting it at the lowest price possible. The lower we can buy the property, the better we can make a return on our investment. So don't go into an offer trying to overpay and compete with other buyers and get yourself into a situation where you're in trouble financially because you overpaid out of emotion. Go in with the mindset that you're going to run an analysis to figure out how much you can afford to pay for this property. And if the seller doesn't want to accept that low offer, then you move on and you're not emotional about it. You go to the next property. Again, this takes patience and it takes controlling your emotions, because when you get close to buying something, you naturally get all these positive emotions where you start to let your guard down and you start to say, oh, I don't care anymore about spending this much money. I just really want this property. You need to be careful of that. Having backup properties in mind that you can offer on will kind of help keep you more level-headed so that you can approach this property trying to get it at the best price possible. And if it doesn't work out, you're not going to worry about it. You're going to move on to the next property. So to give you an example, when I was offering on my most recent rental property purchase, it took me over a year to find and get a property under contract. I had offered on several properties, but none of them would accept my lower offers that made sense for me when I ran my analysis. So to give you an example, let's just say you calculate how much income you think you can get from the property, you calculate how much you're going to need to put into it for renovations to get it ready to rent, and then you calculate your property taxes, your insurance, and any other ongoing costs like your mortgage, and you factor all of these in to figure out what the ideal purchase price would be so that you can at least get a 15 to 20% return on the rental income. And over the long term, when the property value appreciates, you want to make sure you're getting a return on your equity. So the cash that you're investing as a down payment, you want to make sure over time you're getting a nice return on that money that's invested as well. All right, so as you begin submitting offers, eventually when you get one accepted and you have a property under contract, then we're gonna move on to the next step in real estate investing, and that's inspections. Inspections are one of the requirements that you have to get. Now, they're not required, but in my video here, I'm letting you know these are a requirement if you want to be a successful real estate investor. There's no reason to buy a property blind. You want to make sure you're buying a property that doesn't have major issues that are going to pop up out of nowhere and cost you thousands of dollars to fix and potentially ruin your return on investment and put you in the negative. So in order to avoid financial hardships down the road, it's important to get the property inspected up front. You can also get other independent inspections besides a general whole house inspection. So you can have a specialist come look at the roof. You can have a specialist come look at the well and septic systems. You can have a specialist that comes and looks at other things like the furnace system, for example. Sometimes these whole home inspectors kind of do a general overview. They kind of roughly go through the house quickly, looking at lots of different things at once, and they're not really specialized in one particular area. So I often will pay for the whole home inspection, but I'll also pay for some separate inspections to be done by independent contractors who are specializing in that field. Like the roofer, for example, who's on a roof fixing roofs every day. He knows what to look for when he's inspecting a roof compared to maybe a whole house inspector who has less knowledge and might not catch something. One of the other benefits of getting inspections is, although they cost money up front to have done, a lot of times the inspections will turn up things that are wrong with the property, and you can use this as leverage and negotiating when talking to the seller. A lot of times you can end up getting seller credits where the seller gives you money towards these repairs to fix these different things wrong with the property, and this will eventually offset the cost that you just spent on those inspections, because now you're getting money from the seller to make the repairs that otherwise you might not have received had you not had inspections done. So you would have bought the property and you would have found out that it needed a new furnace, and then you would have had to spend money out of pocket on that new furnace, and now you're out that money. But in this case, you had inspections done and you found out something was wrong with the furnace. You were able to get a credit for it. So now you're not paying out of pocket your own money, you're using your seller's money to pay for it. So inspections can often give you a break even at worst, but a lot of times they even help you make a better return on your investment. So therefore, don't look at inspections as an expense that you're wasting money on. Look at it as a way to get a positive return on investment. You're probably going to get more in credits than what you spend on those inspections. So it's actually going to make you come ahead financially if you look at it that way. All right, so after inspections have been done and you've negotiated any repairs with the seller, the other steps of the closing process, you have to get home insurance lined up. So you want to call around and get multiple quotes for home insurance policies to make sure you're getting the cheapest and best policy possible in case a fire would ever happen, or a storm, or something would go wrong inside the home, like plumbing would cause a massive flood and ruin the whole house. So you want to make sure you have home insurance and you have a good policy. You also want to do some due diligence on the title to make sure you're taking clear title. This is where a title company will typically do a property title search. They'll also offer title insurance, which is part of your closing fees you pay at closing. Again, this insurance protects you in the event that something happened to the title that was missed out on, like maybe they overlooked it and it causes a big problem legally. So for example, when people sell property in the past, if deeds didn't get recorded properly and the chain of ownership didn't transfer properly, this could cause potential issues when you try to take title to this property. So a title company, again, can take care of making sure the title is clear of any defects, and they offer title insurance to protect you in case something got missed, so that down the road you're not getting sued by somebody who claims they still own the property and has title to it. During the closing process, since you usually have a window of 30 to 45 days from the time you get the property under contract until the time when you actually close at the closing office with the seller and you get the keys, this 30 to 45 day window is also important to start lining up any contractors. So this is time to have your real estate agent let you back in the property with contractors so they can give you quotes and bids on some of the renovations that you want to do the minute you take ownership of the property. So you can start getting those repairs lined up and scheduled ahead ahead of time so that when you close on the property, then those contractors can come in, get to work quickly, and you can get that property renovated as fast as possible. Because time is money with investment property. When the property's sitting empty, you're paying monthly expenses to the mortgage, to the insurance, to the property taxes, and you're not making any money off the property yet. So having these repairs lined up, ready to go, can get you renovated, get you ready to rent the property out quicker, so you can get a tenant in place quicker and start getting rental income coming in. All right, so let's talk a little bit about renovations. Let's go on to the next step. We've just closed on the property. Now renovations are set to begin. So renovations can often play an important role in how much rent you can charge for the property. If you buy a property that's in really rough condition and you don't fix it up, you can't expect to rent it for that much money, because the quality of tenants coming in to look at the property, they're going to be able to tell the property's not in very good shape, and they're going to feel like your high rent price that you're asking just isn't worth it. And it's going to be very difficult to find a tenant to pay that high rent price. However, if you've gone in and you've renovated the property and it looks really nice on the inside, this might make tenants feel like this is a good value they're getting for the rent money that you're asking, and it's easier to rent the property. So look at renovations as a way to get a return on your investment over time. Let's just say, for example, you go spend $30,000 today on renovations to make your property look really nice. And what that does in the long term is it allows you to raise your rent. Instead of asking for $1,000, maybe it ups the rent to $1,500. So now you're able to get $1,500 a month instead of $1,000 a month. So you're getting an extra $500 a month in rent by doing these renovations. So over the course of 12 months, over 1 year, that extra $500 a month multiplied by 12 months would be $6,000 more you're getting in rent for that property. So if you spend $30,000 on those renovations and you're getting $6,000 extra a year, it's going to take 5 years of having that rental property rented out to break even on those renovations. And then after that, you're in the plus, you're making positive return on investment on those renovations. So think about the math behind the renovations. You're looking at how it's going to help make a nice return on investment. Every year you're getting $6,000 divided by the $30,000 up front you had to invest. So you're getting a 20% return on those renovations every single year. So again, 5 years to break even. After that, you're netting all that extra income thanks to those renovations. So my tips for doing renovations: number one, what things could you do yourself? Are there things you could learn by watching YouTube videos to save money that you don't need to go hire contractors for? These could be easy things like painting walls. Maybe you learn how to, install flooring if you're doing like a plank style flooring that just clips together. These are some ideas that you could start looking into to try to save some money, because a contractor is going to charge you a lot for the labor on these different aspects. A lot of times materials make up maybe 30 to 40% of a contractor's quote. The rest of that, 60, 70% of their quote, oftentimes is the labor. So you want to make sure that if there's areas that you could just do things yourself, you take advantage of that, and that's going to help you save more money on the renovations, and that's going to help you net a better return on your investment. Now, outside of that, the things that you do need to hire contractors for, it's important to get multiple quotes. Different contractors will have a wide range in quotes. For example, I recently had to get a new furnace and air conditioning system, and the quotes ranged from $5,000 to as high as $15,000. So if I would have just gone with the very first quote I got, which was $15,000, I would have overspent by $10,000. I ended up finding a contractor that came in and replaced everything for $5,000. And that essentially saved me 10 grand that I would have overpaid had I not gotten multiple quotes. So to get multiple quotes, you can start by looking at word of mouth. Who recommends different contractors by asking on social media, asking friends and family, sending out text messages, calling people who've had renovations recently to see who they used as their contractors and would recommend to you. You can also get on Google or Yelp and look at different contractor businesses that have business pages on Google and on Yelp. Look at the reviews to see how they've done, what quality of work, and what other people are saying about these contractors. So as you start meeting these contractors at the property, you'll get a good feel if you feel like they're going to do quality work just by interviewing them, talking to them in person, asking questions, walking them through the property, getting them to kind of point things out to you. That's going to give you a better understanding of, does this contractor actually know what they're talking about? Do they seem experienced? Do they seem like they're going to do a good job? And then you can compare that with what quotes you get back from these different contractors to try to make a final decision on price, but also quality of contractor work. All right, so while the renovations are getting started or maybe they're nearing completion, the next step is to start focusing on getting that property rented out. So to start renting a property out, you want to get on the different rental websites. You can get on Zillow and list properties for rent on Zillow. You can have your real estate agent list the property for rent on the MLS system. You can also go to many free websites like Craigslist. This is usually a really good site where people are looking for rentals. So Craigslist is where I would probably start. It's free to post a listing, so you can just get on there, create an account, post your listing, add some photos, and then you'll wait for those emails to start coming in from prospective tenants who want to set up showings to go see the property. As you start getting applications for renting your property, it's important to make sure you do a proper screening of your tenants. Have a background check pulled so that you can make sure their criminal history, to make sure it's a quality person you're leasing to. You also want to look at their credit report to make sure that they are good with credit. If they are paying their bills on time, then that's going to give you confidence that they're probably going to pay their rent on time as well. You can also ask for references from previous landlords. So you can talk to other landlords who have had them in the past as tenants to get a good idea if they're a quality tenant, if there were any issues, and you can then judge them further based on if those issues were, if they really mattered or if it's something major that's actually going to affect your decision that causes you to decline a tenant. So once you've narrowed down your pool of tenant applications to your best 1 or 2 or 3 tenants, you can meet them at the property again to walk them through the property and kind of interview them and just talk with them a little bit, find out some more information about them, just to kind of give you a better sense and better feel to go with your gut instinct on which tenant you'd like to rent to if you have multiple options in front of you. Now, if you've only got one tenant that's really replied to your rental listings, then it kind of leaves you a smaller pool. Now, don't feel pressured that you have to go with that tenant just because they're the only one that's applied so far. You can leave it open and let your property sit for rent longer, and maybe more tenant applications will start coming in. All right, so the next step as a real estate investor, let's say you just got the property rented out. You want to make sure that you put the security deposit into a separate bank account you have set up for that rental property, and you don't touch those funds because someday when that tenant moves out, you are going to need to reimburse them that security deposit minus any expenses that you deduct from it if they had any damage to the property. You also want to make sure you've got a good lease signed so you can do month to month, but we recommend doing at least a 1-year lease. And if you can get them locked in for more than 1 year, that could even be more beneficial to you to make sure you have some security there. The income's going to be coming in for a longer duration. Now, in your lease, you want to make sure you have different clauses that talk about damage to the property and what responsibilities of the tenant, as well as what responsibilities for the landlord. So it's clearly outlined who is responsible for what and what the consequences are if things aren't done properly according to the lease. To draft a lease, you can go to a real estate attorney and have them make a quick template for you. And you can also do a lot of the legwork up front by getting templates online, tweaking them to your liking, and then have a real estate attorney review that lease template that you've already created, and they can make any final changes and tweaks to it to help cut down some of the costs on attorney fees by you doing some of the legwork ahead of time. But if you have an attorney, do it from scratch. It probably will cost you $300, $400, $500 to have them draft up a template lease that you can use for all your rental properties. All right, so our final step today, let's talk a little bit about property management. You can choose to self-manage a property yourself and save the property management fee, or you can pay about 8% of your rental income each year to a property manager. This is about 1 month's rent. So a property manager will take a lot of the work off of you. They'll handle communications with the tenant. They'll handle renting the property out when it becomes vacant. They'll manage collecting the payments, making sure they're assessing late fees if the tenant doesn't pay on time. So it, again, kind of puts less work and stress on your shoulders, but it does come at a cost of 1 month's rent. So if you're collecting $1,500 a month in rent, imagine paying a property manager $1,500 for the whole year to manage the property. So you'll have to weigh the pros and cons if that $1,500 is worth it for a property manager to manage the property for you or not. If you have multiple units, again, you're going to be paying 1 month's rent per unit. So again, if you've got 4 units, you're going to have to pay 1 month's rent for each of those 4 units, so that it's going to add up to 4 rental payments across those 4 properties. Now, self-managing can be easy if you set up automated systems like rent collection. You can have them pay electronically through different digital payment methods like Venmo or Apple Pay, or you can set up maybe a website where they could check out each month and send you a payment, or they can do direct through their bank account through ACH. So again, automating rent collection so you don't have to manually go pick it up in person. This can save you a lot of time and headaches. You can also automate some of the management responsibilities in terms of using different softwares. So softwares for accounting, so you can log the rental income you're collecting, you can log your expenses in these accounting softwares, making it easier to track what's going on financially with the property. And then you can turn these reports over to your accountant each year when it's time to do taxes. And then some of the maintenance and upgrades to the property, you can have a handyman that you keep on speed dial. So anytime anything goes wrong with the property, you can call the handyman and have them go take care of it, and you could pay them, to be a contractor to fix the property so that it's stress off your shoulders of having to go figure out how to make the fix yourself. So again, you can create these different systems to make self-managing a little easier, and then you can save on the property management fee. All right, so overall, that's it for this ultimate guide to investing in real estate, step by step, going through from building credit to saving the down payment, to getting pre-qualified, to shopping around to make sure you're getting multiple quotes from multiple lenders, then going and getting a real estate agent and actually looking at properties once you're pre-qualified, then writing an offer, going through the closing steps and inspections, and then getting into the renovations. Then lastly, property management, getting that property rented out to a tenant where you're screening quality tenants and you're doing the ongoing management of that property to make sure that you're keeping it in good condition, you're keeping it rented, you're raising rents responsibly, and you're helping boost your overall income from this investment property by looking for ways that you can keep the property in nice shape or cut expenses to improve the bottom line. And a final tip for you today before we go, make sure you get savvy on tax benefits of investing in real estate. So talk to an accountant about the different ways you can save money on your taxes by owning investment real estate. A lot of times you can take a depreciation expense against the property's value each year to help reduce your taxable income. You can write off different tax deductions for different expenses related to the property. So we're talking mortgage interest, property taxes, different repairs and renovations you make to the property can be expensed. So again, a good accountant that's familiar with real estate investing, tax deductions will help you learn how you can use this asset that you just invested money into to also be a tax saving tool to help you on your income taxes. All right, if you enjoyed this video and if you got value out of it, please hit the thumbs up button today to help us in the YouTube algorithm so that we can get this video seen by more people. And also you can leave a comment below of what your first investment property was, maybe share some information so that others can see how your experience went as a real estate investor if they're trying to get the motivation to get started today as a beginner.